All right. What's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast Interview. Every single week, I interview top real estate professionals, top entrepreneurs, and straight up top badasses out there dominating their space. And today, guys, we got another amazing rock star guest here on the podcast. Good friend of mine today, Scott Kumler, who is a team leader here in the Phoenix metro market. They are just crushing it, growing rapidly. He runs and operates a team of 28 agents, may even be more beyond that since my last conversation with him. But really stoked and honored to have Scott Kumler on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Awesome. Appreciate it having me on, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this, man. I've been, we're in the same market. We know each other. I've been, able to witness and watch all your rapid growth. I'm excited to have you on, man, and pick your brain, dude. So before we get into all the epic shit that you're up to, dude, because you are growing and scaling so fast right now, and also in a market where a lot of people are having the opposite. With this transaction volume decline, a lot of people that I'm talking to, even, that are successful team leaders and brokerage owners and people that have been producing at a high level for a lot of years, a lot of people are struggling right now. And you're like experiencing the opposite, where you're just rapid fire, dude. But before we jump into all the things that you're up to today, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. So, what did you do before real estate, and what led you into real estate in the first place?
Yeah. So this journey kind of actually started back when I lived in Illinois. So I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, and up there I used to work for a major grocery chain, and I was an assistant store manager for the company. I worked with the same company ever since I was like 15 years old. So I've worked there for got a good 20 plus years with the exact same company. And I used to work 50, 60 hours a week, salary. Worked a ton of hours, and it just kind of, after a while, I just got kind of tired of, working so much. And so one day, actually, I left work after a 10+ hour day. And I was driving home, and I got a flat tire outside Chicago in like -5-degree weather. And it took me seriously 2 hours to change my tire to my car, because my lug nuts were actually frozen to the tire, so I couldn't even get them off. And so I ended up calling up my wife at that point. And I said, first I asked her to come pick me up, because I'm like, I'm not going to be standing out here. I had like frostbite on my fingers. It was terrible. And then after I asked her to pick me up, I'm like, that's it. I'm like, we're moving to Arizona. I'm like, I can't deal with this anymore. And so so that night I basically laid out a game plan, went home, sat down with my wife at the kitchen table, took out a notepad, and I basically laid out a step-by-step process of what we were going to do to not only move to Arizona, but then also kind of change our lives. I was tired of working 50, 60 hours all the time. And so the goal was to actually get into real estate at that point. So I'd made a plan to move to Arizona and to get into real estate at the same time. I started applying for jobs down here because I needed something to kind of transition me to Arizona, because obviously when you're making a move, it's pretty expensive. And so I got a job at another grocery chain down here that happened to be expanding at the time. I was an assistant store manager there as well. Again, I was working, my minimum schedule was basically 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. So I was only giving off 1 day a week for a long period of time. And then I'd work at least 10 hours. Sometimes it'd be even more than that. Well, eventually, the company I was working for was pretty good, so I actually liked working for them. But then it happened to be that I had a friend of mine that was supposed to come visit me one weekend, and I asked my boss, I'm like, listen, I know I can't get off the weekends because it's groceries, grocery management. I'm like, that's hard to get off on weekends. I'm like, but they're flying down on a Friday, and they're leaving on a Tuesday. I'm like, can I get off Friday? And can I get off Monday and Tuesday? I'll work the weekends. I get it. I'm like, can you get me off those days just so I can like pick them up from the airport and then drop them back off? And eventually, and so he's like, oh, I'll see what I can do. He's like, I don't know, but I'll see if I can figure something out, right? Well, he ended up working me every single day, all 5 days, and ended up giving another assistant store manager the weekend off, even though I'd asked for it off myself. So basically, once my friend left town, I went into a real estate school down here in Arizona and signed up for real estate school. I didn't even talk to my wife about it before I signed up for real estate school. I called her up after I signed up, and I'm like, hey, honey, I just signed up for real estate school. And she's like, you did what? And I'm like, I signed up for real estate school. I'm like, we talked about this already. And she's like, well, yeah, I thought you talk about it again with me. You wouldn't just sign up for school. And I'm like, well, it's already done. So made a goal to basically, get, I worked the 60 hours a week, but then also I was still going to real estate school. So I didn't have a day off for about 2 months. And I made a goal that, we were looking at buying a house at the time, or we were under contract to buy a new build house. And my goal was to complete real estate school. And then the day after I closed on my home, I was going to get my 2-week notice. And so we closed on our house down here in Goodyear. And then the following day, I'd already passed my real estate test, already chose a brokerage. And then the following day after we closed on our house, I basically went into my boss on my off day and said, hey, I'm giving you my 2 weeks. I'm out of here. So I quit the day after we closed on our house, and it's been a journey ever since.
That's awesome, dude. So was it really for real estate? Was it just kind of, hey, like, this is a vehicle I could see myself having success in. I can pick and choose my own schedule. I don't need to go to have a 4-year degree. Like, what was it about? I know it sounds like freedom was important to you, or at least autonomy of schedule. Was that what attracted you to real estate, or was there something else in addition to that?
Yeah. So there's two things. One, I've always been had the business mindset. So when I got into real estate school, or when I decided to get into real estate, it really had nothing to do with me wanting to help people buy and sell houses. It was about me owning my own business. And ever since I was in college, I've always wanted to be a business owner. So I've always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur. And that was always my goal. And in fact, part of the reason why I dropped out of college when I was going to college was because I ended up getting a D in accounting twice, and I could no longer continue on with my business major. And all I ever wanted to do is own my own business. And then when I'm like, I can't do business administration anymore. And then I'm like, well, why do I need to go to college to own my own business? So I dropped. So that's part of the reason why I dropped out of school. But so for the business aspect of it, and then also I've always wanted to get involved in real estate investing. And I thought, just as far as learning the business, helping people buy and sell homes, it just gave me a good opportunity to learn about investing. And then of course, being in real estate, I've been presented with a lot of opportunities, whether it's flipping a whole home or, buying a rental property, those opportunities kind of fall in your lap, when you're busy enough. And so that's kind of one of the reasons why, one of the other reasons why I got into real estate as well.
So it's like, all right, so you're changing that flat tire, 5 degrees, Midwest, cold as hell, frostbite on the fingers. And you're like, all right, this is like, enough's enough, right? But you make the point, hey, we're moving to Arizona. Then boom, you make that happen. Then you get the job here. Then you're like, okay, I'm going to go to real estate school. The second we close on this house. So where I'm going with this is, all right, you are somebody that gets clarity, sets your goals, but then follows through with those goals. I mean, 2,000-mile away move across from everybody, your family, whatever. Like, a lot of people talk, hey, I want to do all this shit, but usually don't have that follow through. Have you always been like, is that it just how you're wired, or what do you do to go out there and set those goals and then make sure that you follow through with those goals you set?
Yeah, I mean, you want to hit clear in the head. I had clarity on what I wanted to do. But then there's two other things too. One, I'm very competitive, and two, I hate being wrong. So, when I first got into real estate, and most of the time when I was going through real estate school, like, no one knew I was going to real estate school. Like, I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell my friends. Maybe there's a select few people that may have known. Most of the people, like, I didn't post on social media I was going to real estate school, so most people didn't know. Even when I moved to Arizona, most people didn't know I was moving to Arizona until I gave my 2-week notice at my previous job. And so, one of the things that I've always done is, I feel like, you can't be conservative in this life. You have to kind of take risks. And one of the things I've always been very clear on is my ability to figure it out, and my ability to do whatever it takes to be successful, and I've always worked hard. I mean, that's why I used to work 60. So I didn't mind working 60, 70 hours a week. What I was tired of is, like, my friends invited me over to their events and saying, no, I couldn't come to like a birthday party or whatever. I actually, when I got into real estate, the first year I was in real estate, I spent Thanksgiving with my family. It was the first Thanksgiving I spent with my family since I was 15 years old, because I had to work every single Thanksgiving. So I didn't mind working a lot. I was just tired of working when someone else told me to work. So, I would say, like I said, the biggest thing was competitiveness. And then I hate being wrong. And so when I got into real estate, most people didn't think I'd be successful because I'm a huge introvert. And so everyone thought I was making the biggest mistake of my life, because I was leaving a salary job that paid very well, and getting into real estate. And I hate talking to people. So people assume that I was just going to like be terrible at it. And so I didn't want to prove them right. I didn't want to have to go back to my previous job. So I just came out working as hard as possible, and knew I'd figure the rest out.
Yeah, as part of the reason why you didn't tell people, is that like just part of a strategy of, okay, this then gives me a chance, or then I can't have people talk me out of my decision?
That, and then on top of that too, yeah, I mean, yeah, then talk me out of it, but I was so clear on it, it didn't matter what anyone else said anyway.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't need to ask anyone for advice because I knew that was the right way to go, and what I need to do. So, and it's kind of like, for example, like weight loss, right? Like if you tell everyone you're going to lose weight, then, you have like your doubters, and then you have people that are following you. And if you like mess up, then it's like, so to me, it's like, why tell people you're going to do something? Tell them when you've done it, And so for me, like, even when I lost, there was one point in my life when I was in my 20s where I lost like 70 pounds. Like, no one knew I was losing weight until I lost 70 pounds and then did a post and saying, hey, I lost 70 pounds. Here's my like after picture type thing. So, so that's kind of been the way, I've always, people talk too much, and to me is just more about doing it and then showing them the results when it's done. Because, I always say that it doesn't really matter the process to get there. A lot of times all that matters is the results. And so it's about figuring out how to get that to get those results, and then showing everyone, hey, I did it. So you can't really say anything now because, the proof is there.
All right. So you pass your real estate test, you give your 2-week notice. Well, I don't want to say, I mean, everybody's in a different situation, but most in that situation would probably be like, okay, let me do this real estate thing part-time, transition into this. But you were like, dude, I'm burning the ships, so then what did you do, man? Because that's obviously a risky move. Like, what did that first year look like out of the gate? What did that look like? Because obviously you've done really well.
Yeah. So so when I first got into real estate, I told my wife at the time that, she's in retail as well. So she was a bakery manager, in the same company that I work for. And I told her that when I got in real estate, my goal is for her to get in real estate as well. And I told her that, she would never have to work another holiday in retail again, because as a bakery manager, holidays, you can imagine, are pretty busy. So I told her, I'm like, you're never gonna have to work another holiday, in real estate. So I got into real estate in February, and I got my license in February, and I basically went out there and just hit open houses. I did 22 open houses my first 25 days in real estate, and then did 5 open houses a week for my first year in real estate consistently. And one of the things I was great at is creating a system, and that was kind of like a non-negotiable for me. It was just doing open houses all the time, and so fortunately, my wife made money, at the time when I first got into real estate. It wasn't enough to support us. I didn't tell her that, but it wasn't enough to like pay all of our bills, but it was enough to cover the majority of it. I mean, were there times where we couldn't pay off all of our credit cards and stuff like that? I mean, there were definitely times, but because I knew that I couldn't be unsuccessful doing this, otherwise I'd have to go back to my previous job. I just started hitting open houses hard. And then I ended up closing our first deal after about 4 months in real estate. And we closed 8 deals within our first 8 months in real estate. But that summer, my wife actually, when she was going to work to do inventory at like 2 a.m. in the morning, she ended up getting a huge car accident. She actually got T-boned, and she was driving our Eclipse at the time, which is a convertible, and they ended up having to take the jaws of life to get her out of the car. And so she tore her rotator cuff, tore her ACL, and had a couple of herniated discs in her back. So she's basically out in disability. Well, in disability, you don't get paid as much as you were originally. So I think she's, if I remember correctly, I think it was like 66% of her income she was getting paid. Fortunately, at the time she got in the accident, that's when my check started coming in myself. So I was basically to kind of offset some of her income that she was basically losing for no longer working. But since she basically wasn't working at the time, I basically went to her and said, hey, well, go ahead and get your real estate license now, go ahead and go to school, because you're not doing anything else anyways. It's not like, real estate school is a physical job, right? To go through school. So while she was on disability, she ended up going to real estate school. Fortunately, her disability took her through the holidays, through Christmas and through Thanksgiving. And she was out till about January of the following year. She got her license, I want to say around like October of the previous year before her disability ran out. Her disability ran out in January. They basically said, either quit or you have to come back to work. She came back to work, and then just because, she didn't know if she wanted to quit the job yet. So she came back to work. And then about 2 weeks later, I was actually at home visiting my family because my dad was sick. And she called me up and she was just in tears. She's like, I'm in so much pain. I can't do this. It's so taxing on me, because she didn't get everything fixed. I mean, she got ACL surgery, but she still had like, shoulder issues and neck issues. So when she called me up and she's like, hey, I can't do this anymore, I'm like, all right, we'll just give your 2-week notice. And she's like, give my 2-week notice. Are you sure we can handle that? I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out. I'm like, just go ahead and give your 2-week notice. So in February that year, she gave her 2-week notice. And then we both got into real estate full-time together. So for me, like I said, to start off, it was just open houses. And then we kind of created a system where my wife would do all like our lead follow-up. And then I would do all the showings, listing presentations, buyer consultations, contract negotiations, stuff like that.
Yeah. So let's talk about time frame, because this hasn't, you're not like an old timer, like I hate even bringing this up because I feel old when I say this, but I've been doing this 18 years now. And I mean, so this, what's this, 4 or 5 years ish for you?
6 years. I actually just renewed my license again. So just a little bit over 6 years. And then my wife's been licensed for about 5.5.
Okay. Okay. So you're in, before you into your first year ish, right then and there, that's where she decided to transition and join with you. Then you're now popping deals. You've got this new system where you're doing the lead gen still, but then your wife Cinnamon's doing the lead follow-up. So essentially she's playing ISA.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically, she was, when we were doing open houses together, she would help with open houses because that allowed me, especially at the point we got super busy. It was hard for me to continue to do open houses and do all the showings and all that stuff because you're doing open house on the weekend. So she was actually doing open houses with me. So that way, if I had to leave to do a showing or a listing presentation or buyer consultation, I could do that. So I'd set up all the signs, we'd be there together. And then if I had to leave to do something else, I can come back and we wouldn't miss out on the leads at that time.
Yeah, talk to us about that, dude. And we're going to get into, because I know that you went from doing a ton of open houses. You still do them today, but I believe a lot of that's just to show your agents.
Yeah, it's just
like kind of I mean, mainly, you're the number one, Zillow converter in the state, and like you're or in at least our county, and you're doing a ton of business from online and now past clients and whatnot. So that was kind of a means to an end, but you had a ton of success with them. And one thing that I love that you just said there was, okay, when we partnered up, it allowed me to go out there and show homes and do listing presentations. So you're at the open house, you're meeting people, and you're like, hey, you're interested in a house, let's go right now. Or, hey, I got a house that I'm thinking about selling. Okay, let's go to your house right now. So you didn't have to wait. Like how did you transition and pivot to that? Because I don't think most people don't know how to go out there and create a successful open house. But if you know how to work them right, dude, they're a freaking gold mine. And you're somebody that knows how to work them right.
Yeah, I mean, so one, I'm just creative and trying to figure out a system. So if you come up with if there's a problem, you got to figure out how to solve that problem. And so obviously, if I'm doing open house by myself, and let's say I have clients that are like, hey, I want to see properties, or like you're right, like for example, listings, like we're doing open house together one time, and a client came in and was like, hey, I don't even want to see the house, I just want you to sell my house. Well, because we're both there together, I was actually able to leave and do a listing presentation there, basically at his house. We live in the community right away, so I didn't have to really wait. But obviously, a lot of times people, and one of the things I'll always say too is I've never in my career had to cancel an open house because of my schedule. A lot of times what happens is agents will make excuses and say, hey, oh, my client wants to see property. Okay, I'm going to cancel this open house. So for me, I just created a system to where it gave me flexibility to basically, pivot wherever I needed to pivot. And because we were doing them together, that allowed me to move. We might get this a little bit later, but that's actually how we started building our team up. Was our first agent we ever recruited. We specifically recruited just to hold open house with me, because at the point, my wife, she's doing all of our lead follow-up. Well, we got to the point where we had so many leads that she was following up with 100 calls a day. Well, if we're doing open house together, it's very hard for her to call 100 people while we're at an open house, so she could no longer continue to do all our follow-up and hold open house with me. So the first agent that ever joined our team, we specifically recruited just to hold open houses so I could do all the setup, because I'm very anal with our setup and making sure it's set up correctly. Signs are in the correct place, stuff like that. But then if I had to leave, she would be there, still get the leads in there. And then I could go do showings, come back, take the open house stuff down. And we wouldn't miss out on the opportunity to still continue to lead generate. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, love it, dude. Yeah, so let's so at this point, your team started really like for the reason that you just said. So open houses is all your leads, all your business, the vast majority. I mean, because I know today, dude, you do a ton of online leads. Was that in the picture yet, or is this still just all essentially open houses?
So my first year, I did some like squeeze pages, like in Facebook groups, stuff like that. But after about I would say about a year to 2 years in the business, we went to like more of the Facebook ad route, where we actually started running Facebook ads, just because then it was more automated. Obviously you can run the Facebook ads and let it sit for a little while and just like the leads keep coming in. So obviously over time, our Facebook ad budget increased. At the beginning, it might have been like a couple $100 a month just to get a few deals, a few leads in that way, until we started kind of kept scaling it to get a little bit higher. And it was right at the beginning of COVID where actually I stopped doing open houses as my main lead generation source. That's all the time that we recruited our first agent to join our team. But during COVID, it was super hard for obviously people to find open houses because houses were selling so quick. I mean, you could schedule an open house on a Thursday and by Saturday it was already under contract. So, but because I had built up such a huge sphere of people in my database and I got so obsessed with just getting as many leads into my database as possible, making sure they're set up on the correct trips, stuff like that. Even though I stopped doing open houses, my business continued to expand because I just had so many leads in my database at that point. And then of course, interest rates are super low. So everyone was, coming out of the woodwork to buy houses, and, our drips allowed us to stay in, contact with our leads, that ended up using us.
Yeah. Cause that's the cool thing about this. It's like, if somebody's like, I don't enjoy doing open houses. Okay. We don't have to enjoy it. It doesn't have to be an indefinite thing. I mean, you know me, I'm a huge, believer in them. It's how I built the foundation of my business early on as well. Well, I personally haven't done an open house in probably 12, 13 years. A lot of our agents do, but I, like, it became a means to an end. Now, today, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're pretty much just working past clients. I mean, for you yourself, not counting your teammates. I know you're generating a ton of opportunities for them, but at this point, your own business for you is pretty much just past clients, repeat referral business, SOI.
Exactly. And, and I'm sure this, obviously, like a lot of times, especially when it comes to like social media is like more of a long-term game. You're not, just by posting at the beginning, you're not gonna get a lead within a couple, months or anything like that. Sometimes it's consistent work over time. You start getting a lot of business. So what ends up happening is, when I first got into real estate, I hit open houses very hard, but then also I post on social media about, hey, doing open house this weekend, under contracts, closings, stuff like that. So now we have built up a sphere just within our own social media circle where we post, where we have a lot of friends, that are looking at, buying, that reach out to us because they see that we're always consistently busy when it comes to that as well too. So that's where a lot of our like sphere comes from, is people just have seen for like last like 4 or 5 years that we've been, in real estate, we've been working, we've been grinding. And then, they just kind of come out of nowhere and, just kind of 6 years worth of, nonstop social media posting, which, has a lot of people to continue to remember what we do. And then, they reach out to us, and same thing with past clients, we reach out to them too. And, we try to friend request all of our past clients on social media as well too. That's the best way to stay in contact with them. So that way, even if we don't get a chance to like keep in contact with them all the time, they're always seeing what we're doing. So anytime we get a lot of repeat business, most of the time, if you look back at our repeat business, they're people that I'm friends with on social media, and then they reach out to us when they're ready to, buy another house or sell their house.
Yep. So, okay. So you hire this agent to help assist with open houses. So your wife Cinnamon can do the follow-up and you can be doing the showings. But then it sounds like you hired him and then boom. And when we say COVID, because our market really didn't get locked down and shut down when it comes to the real estate market. So it wasn't because of, there's this crazy virus. Yeah. It was because the market went so freaking crazy that things were selling so fast. So then from there, because I correct me if I'm wrong, but you haven't lost any agents, right?
We had a first agent leave our team just the other day, but I mean,
okay.
But that's because they got a full-time job and they just decided they were not going to be doing this anymore. But yeah, I mean, other than that, we haven't, since we started, building our team up, we haven't had an agent leave our team yet.
Okay. Yeah. So your retention is like unheard of, right? So then from there, how did you pivot and transition your business to adapt to that? Because, okay, you got this big lead source that's not working, but then you also got this new agent that you hired on for this purpose. And now that's not there. So like, obviously that agent stayed with you, how did you navigate during that time?
Well, we were, at the time we had a ZILLOW account as well. So we were getting ZILLOW leads. And of course that was Facebook ads. I have an ISA that was following up with our leads as well too. I would say, a ZILLOW account's definitely kind of what Well, it helped, but at the end of the day, like ever since we got our first agent at the beginning of 2020, we really weren't recruiting to bring more agents on board. So between 2020 and up until April 2022, so basically just a little over 2 years, we only had about 3 agents on our team, and there were people that, were basically referred to us. They weren't like necessarily one that we were recruiting other than that first agent where we found out to do an open house. The other 2 agents that joined our team, they joined our team because they just wanted the mentorship, the training, the coaching. They just want a little bit of help and guidance. And then it was this last year that we kind of decided to really, we kind of saw the writing on the wall with the way the market was going to be. And so, we knew that we need to put a full force effort of recruiting agents. And so in April 2022, we started recruiting, and then we grew from the 3 agents that we had up to about 34 agents that we're at today. In that year time frame. And then a lot of that's been a lot of our online lead marketing. We give all the training for open houses like that. And some of our agents have been really killing with open houses as well. But our agents that are having a ton of luck are coming from our ZILLOW account and our online lead generation that we do.
So you just said a ton of luck. You mean ton of success?
Well, yeah, I meant a ton of success. But I will say this though. I've always said, when it comes to real estate, my personal opinion is that I've always said that I may not have been the best at anything I've done, but I've always created opportunities for myself to get lucky. And what I mean by that is I put the work in, like with an open house. Like let's say you do an open house and you do it in a specific area, and someone comes by at that exact same day you're doing an open house that's ready to buy a house. That's pure luck. Like when I scheduled the open house, I didn't know that this person was going to come by. But a lot of times what happens is people sit at home and they wonder why no one's looking at buying a house. Well, that's because you're not creating opportunities for them to get lucky. Part of the reason why you do the follow-up the way you do, right? The reason why you call someone every 30 days to continue to follow up with them, continue to follow up with those leads, is that you hope that one day you're going to reach out to the person and they just got done talking to their wife and they're like, hey, we need to buy a house right now. And you call at the right time and they're like, oh yeah, me and my wife were just talking about this. Let's go ahead and buy a house right now. That's pure luck that you called them on the right day. But because of your consistent follow-up or because you're consistent open houses, you've created more opportunities for yourself to get lucky when it comes to real estate. So I will always say I'm not the best at, talking to people. Like I said, I'm an introvert, right? I'm not the best at doing anything, but I am probably the best at being consistent, which is creating more opportunities for myself to get lucky in real estate. So I just happen to meet people that are interested in buying a house. The fact that one guy came in and said, hey, I don't want you to sell my house. Or I don't want to buy this house or look at this house. I just want you to sell my house. That's luck that I did an open house in his neighborhood, but because I was consistent with my open houses, I always say I've been very lucky over time because I've got a lot of business just from being consistent. So, but yeah, you're right. So like they've been having a lot of success with their open houses. A lot of our agents that are like one of our agents the other day did an open house. She got 2 listings from the same open house and they're looking at buying 2 houses at the same time in the same area. So, I mean, from one open house, she basically is getting 4 transactions, from a single open house, and the two listings that she got are already actually under contract right now. So they just got under contract the other day.
Yeah, it's great. Like so many people in this industry think that open houses are just for buyers. And I'm like, dude, that's just because you don't know how to do them, man. Even if you look at NAR stats, you got a higher percentage of people finding their listing agent to list their properties through open houses than you do expireds, FSBOs, or circle prospecting. If you look at any of those through things separately, almost the same percentage of sellers as you do buyers. So if you're doing them correctly, boom, it can lead to both sides of that business, dude. And yeah, to your point, it's like the harder you work, the luckier you get, the law of probabilities, right? And when people sit there and say, oh, Scott, man, you got lucky. Well, you also did probably as many open houses in your first year as most do in their whole entire 30-40 year career,
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not, like I always say, I'm not the most knowledgeable. I'm not like the best at talking to people. I'm not like, I know agents that probably would, sell themselves a lot better than me. But all I did was I was consistent enough to fall into business, and so to me, I've always said this business isn't hard to be successful in. It's just about coming up with a plan and being consistent with it. And as long as you're consistent with it, it's easy to sell a ton of houses. It's just the problem that people lack is that consistency of doing the work.
So, one thing that you are really, really good at is coming up with the system. Yeah, right. And I'm making an assumption, so correct me if I'm wrong, but You mentioned, okay, you talk about consistency and the power of consistency and that kind of being like your superpower, if you will. Well, I got to imagine that it's your processes and systems that really allow you to be so consistent,
Mhm.
and I know those watching and listening, this is their first time hearing this, but I've had the, luxury and blessing of like seeing a lot of your back end, processes and systems and things that we'll get into, like your daily scorecards for your agents and all of this stuff. Like, dude, like you got your shit dialed in, right? Like, what power does that play in allowing you to be consistent?
I mean, it's I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's all about the systems that you have. And so for me, like, especially when it came to open houses, like those were all non-negotiable. And the way that the way that I schedule an open house is all a system, So like I do the exact same text on every agent I sold an open house. I have a specific process where I wait after I send my initial text to the first agent. I wait 2 hours. If they don't respond, I send a text to the next agent. I wait 2 hours. If they don't respond, I send a text to the next agent. And so a lot of that's allowed me to do is, like, when I was doing open houses myself all the time, and that was a huge part of my production. Sometimes I'd have a month worth of open houses scheduled because, like, let's say I get to that third person and they respond back to my text saying, yeah, you can hold an open house, right? Okay, great. I'll be there this time, this day, blah, blah, blah. And then let's say that first person responds back and is like, oh yeah, you can hold an open house this weekend. Oh, you know what? I already got something scheduled, but because I knew I was going to schedule one the following weekend or even like maybe the following day, I would be like, but I am looking for one this next day too. Can I hold it open then? So there are times I'd have a month worth of open houses scheduled, and because that was part of my game plan, that was part of my consistency, that I knew that was all non-negotiable. So I knew that, hey, I wasn't going to wait till Thursday to determine if I feel like doing an open house. I was going to do it no matter what. So it allowed me to be consistent, with our systems. And it takes the emotion out of it, I would say. A lot of times people wait till the weekend to say, okay, do I feel like doing it this week? Or let's see if something else comes up. Well, by then it's too late. So, even with the day I'd schedule my open houses, I'd always schedule open houses on Mondays and Tuesdays. That most of the time, the reason why I would do that from Monday, Tuesday for the following weekend was that, a lot of agents wait till Thursdays and Fridays, and then they start reaching out to agents on Thursday and Friday. Well, the agents that might allow them to hold their listings open may already have agents that have already scheduled them. So if I reach out to them on Monday and Tuesday, for one, they're past the weekend, so they would know if it's going to be under contract if they got an offer over the weekend. But then I'm also hitting those agents before someone else is, and then I'm getting all the quality homes. I'm getting the best locations. And so then my open houses are a little bit more of a success as well too. So,
and what you were talking about there, just in case anybody that's watching and listening doesn't they're like, well, we're talking about open houses. Why are you texting these agents? This was okay when you didn't have listings yet. You pounded open houses.
mm-hmm.
You were prospecting agents to get the open houses in the storefronts.
Yep.
And then going back to what you just said with systems, okay, you even took it to the extent of, okay, hey, I'm getting so busy with clients now, that's prohibiting me from being consistent at doing these open houses. So, hey, let me start bringing in my wife Cinnamon to help. Then let me add another agent. So then that way you had no reason or excuse to not be consistent with holding those open houses.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. So then let's transition into your online leads. You're doing a lot of Facebook, having a ton of success with Facebook, and you have for a long time now. But then also with Zillow, like you guys have just been murdering it and crushing it with Zillow and growing so fast with Zillow. So kind of walk us through like what's because I'm always having conversations with people, throughout the country that, struggling, whether it be Realtor.com, whether it be Zillow, very, very essentially same thing, right? As far as the source, but then from there, okay, then there's people like you that are just murdering it, that, you have certain agents doing, well above 10% conversion rates. And so what has been the key to going out there and converting those successfully?
Yeah, well, let's take a little of a step back. So when I first started getting Zillow leads, it was just me and my wife. And one of our issues at the time was we were so busy that it was hard for us to continually answer our phone, all the time. And especially being me and my wife, just me and her, a lot of times if we're like at a wedding together, it's like really we're just kind of like one person, we're both doing something together. So at one point where our Zillow account was really down because we just weren't, we weren't making the effort to, answer the phone as much as we could. And that's part of the reason why we started kind of growing our team. And so So when we started kind of growing our team, we have, basically whenever an agent comes on board, we kind of lay out clear expectations of what's expected. Everyone kind of knows, at what conversion percentage, how many leads you get a month as a cap. And then on top of that, we also send them the sheet. So that way they have a copy of exactly what the expectations are. So if they can always reference it, and stuff like that. And then, like as far as our agents, we do once a month Zillow coaching calls, listening to their calls. We have a connection call scorecard that, Cinnamon fills out where she kind of like ranks everyone's scorecard, discusses, what are some, things are doing well, what are some opportunities. And then that way, when I'm doing my once a month coaching call with our agents, I can kind of reference that scorecard and discuss, what are some of the biggest areas of opportunity. So, so I always kind of, start off whenever we're coaching our agents, find out what their wins are, what are some opportunities they have. And then we kind of just like really nail it down to the numbers. And we talk about our team numbers as well too, and how our team numbers affects each individual agent moving forward as well. Because if our team numbers are down, obviously as agents, they're not getting as many leads. They don't get as high quality leads. And that's going to have an impact on what they may get going forward. Also, one of the things I feel like we've done very well with our Zillow account is there's a lot of other teams, they're very high profile that they get a lot of leads in a lot of, great areas, Scottsdale, like really nice areas, but they're very competitive, and so when I first got into real estate, one of the things that I was told by one of my mentors at the beginning was like, they asked me, well, what area did I want to service? And, I said, like every agent, oh, I'd like to service Scottsdale because it's the Richie houses or whatever. And one of the things he told me is like, no, you don't want to service Scottsdale. He's like, because every agent's going to want to service Scottsdale and there's so much competition, you don't want to do that. So a lot of our luck when it comes to our Zillow conversion as well is we service some of the outskirt areas, areas that maybe doesn't have as much competition where we get a ton of leads from, but they're also leads that typically don't have agents and they need some more help, and most agents kind of like, they don't want to go out to those areas. So they say, well, I'm not going to help you out. And so they call into Zillow because they do their own researching. Whereas a lot of times if we get a lead from Zillow, maybe that's in the immediate, Scottsdale area. A lot of times they may call in, but they may already be working with an agent, but their agent's like out of town or, wasn't available to answer a question. So they just kind of ring in. So we kind of service a lot of the less competitive areas where there's a ton of leads, just not as much competition.
Yeah, I like that, man. The path of least resistance, right? It's kind of like when I used to do a lot of direct mail. Like I would sit there and assess and analyze, okay, how many dominant agents are in that geo farm? And I found, man, if there was, no more than one dominant agent. So it was like I did the calculations. Okay, if there was 80% or more market share to be had, okay, dude, I could go out there and dominate that farm in a much, I could go out there and get the ratios I needed within 6 months. Just least path of resistance, dude. So all right. So it sounds to me like, okay, you're working with your agents internally where, okay, like everybody knows exactly what to do, how to do it, why to do it, what those expectations are. You're clear cut on those, but then you guys are taking a step further with inspecting what you expect. I think I heard you say, we had you speak at our last in-person conference, and that I believe it's Cinnamon, your wife that actually like listens to the calls and QCs the CR like on a daily basis, so just
She chooses every call. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of walk us through that, man. And the importance of that. Cause like, dude, I have conversations constantly with whether it be clients or, just everybody I hang out with is in real estate, right? But the common thing is, man, I'm not getting the ROI that I need with this lead source. But I'm like, okay, like they're lacking a process, or if they have a process, they're lacking that accountability. And you guys seem to like you have every element of it so dialed in.
Yep. Yeah. And so there's two different areas that Cinnamon QC. So one's the CRM, so she's going to the CRM and usually she'll like do a random 3 leads in each person's profile. And, like every agent's getting hit basically once a week. So every day she might do like 5 agents each day. And then she's just randomly QCing 3 leads, just seeing kind of what's going on. And then me and her have a shared document that we have where she'll like input like the leads that she looked at, and then she'll put like the notes, like, oh, this person's not following up, not updating their notes, wherever that may be. And that's in the document. And then we have another document that we share, which is like I said, our connection call scorecard, where she basically listens to every single call. And based on the call, there's certain questions that it asks, and basically every question is either a yes or no answer. Did she do this? Like, did she greet them? Did the agent greet themselves? Did the agent ask for the appointment? Did the agent ask what location? Obviously, if the answer is yes, then that's a point, and that they're doing a good job. If the answer is no, then we have an opportunity that we maybe need to coach with. Now, obviously, there might be one-offs here and there, but then, so she puts that on our connection call scorecard. So when I'm doing our once-a-month coaching meeting, I can go into both documents and before I start the meeting with our agents and say, okay, what are the biggest opportunities? What are some things I need to focus on? So that way I'm not wasting my time with something that maybe they're doing a great job. And obviously I'll tell them, things you're doing really well with too. But then I'll talk about, these are some areas of opportunities that you might have. And just kind of coach them on that. And then they know that we're listening to them. I mean, if they know, a lot of times if agents know that you're paying attention, they're going to be more apt to, do the work. No one's following up. They may say, I don't feel like doing that, or I don't feel like asking for the appointment, or this is I don't like talking to this person, so screw them, so to speak. But, if they know that we're going to be listening to every single call, and that's another thing that we talk to all of our agents about too. They know, fully join the team, that, hey, we're going to be listening to every call. This is what the connection call scorecard is. On each question, they also have an FAQ on why that is important, because a lot of people don't realize why certain questions are important. Like people may say, well, I don't feel comfortable asking, or I don't feel comfortable meeting with someone unless they know they're pre-qualified already, right? But, in the FAQ, it specifically states that the reason you don't ask if they're pre-qualified in the initial phone call is a lot of times you haven't built that relationship with them yet. So questions like that could be off-putting and make it so where they don't want to meet you. So they might, look at getting pre-qualified before they meet you, and then that lender is going to go ahead and refer them to, their agent. So you don't have that relationship with them yet. So that's why you don't want to ask about the pre-qualification question. But a lot of agents don't understand that. So that's part of the reason why I love our FAQ, and every single agent gets a copy of that so they can kind of read through it. So they know the reasons for the why, that this question is important. So.
Okay. So then when you guys log into, Perfect Storm CRM, or, you're looking at your spot checking, a few leads a day, that you're going through. So, kind of creating some randomization so people can't kind of gamify the system, but then what are you looking for in there? Hey, are they set up on the right drips? Do they have the right tasks in place? Are they logging their calls? Like what are you specifically looking for there from a QC standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, the right drips, making sure they're logging their calls, and they are calling them. Obviously we haven't seen like a phone call in a few months. Even if they're set up on the right drips, if we see tasks that are not signed off on, then that's an issue as well too. And then we can kind of like send them a note or say, hey, you haven't followed up with this person, you're missed like 3 call tasks. And so, yeah, making sure they're putting their notes in there. I tell all of our agents, a lot of times when we go into Perfect Storm, we should have a pretty good idea just by looking at this lead based on your notes, exactly what's going on. Like I shouldn't have to ask you, hey, what's going on with this person? I see you called them a few times, but are they buying? Are you working with them? Kind of what's going on. So those are all things that we check, in our CRM, just to, verify they're doing the right stuff. And then, like I said, we kind of, take it, when we do our monthly coaching call, it's a very, hey, these are some of the biggest opportunities we're seeing. Make sure you're doing this. And then we kind of explain the reason why it's important to do that stuff as well.
So then, so let's just say you got, Cinnamon listening to those calls every day. Let's just say somebody is, like you have a daily scorecard. Let's just say their scorecard is an F or whatever that is. Are you waiting then until that monthly meeting, or is that something like hey man, you got to be like at an A- or above? If not, like we're having a combo right now, or is it okay? Well, we'll gather all this intel, sit down monthly, and put a plan together.
So typically, most of our agents actually do a pretty good job with the scorecard. So so a lot of times what happens. The people that we don't wait as much with is basically any of our new agents. So anytime someone gets like a brand new agent, they get a few calls, we might hop on a Zoom meeting a little bit earlier to kind of go through some of the coaching stuff, because as a new agent, a lot of times you get stuck on certain things. It's, first few calls, it's gonna be a little intimidating. So we kind of want to make sure they're not, for one, losing confidence, and being scared to answer the phone anymore. But then kind of, answering any questions they may have, stuff like that. And then typically when I schedule our monthly Zoom meetings, I prioritize our meetings based off of the highest priority person. So meaning that like every month I'm meeting every single one of our agents who are getting leads. And if, for example, I'm going to be starting these again next week. And so on Monday, I'm going to prioritize our agents who, when I look at the numbers, when I look at the calls, are the biggest priorities of people I need to help, whereas if someone's like killing it, like, some of our agents over 12% conversion ratio, they're hitting all the numbers, they're typically going to be the last person that I'm going to even worry about meeting with. And so that's typically kind of how we've always done it, is just prioritizing every single person. And I'll message, so-and-so first, if they're like the biggest priority, schedule a meeting with them first. That way I can get it corrected as soon as possible.
So then what do you, because not everybody's going to convert the same, right? So let's just say your top converters versus those that are converting, decent, because I know if they're probably not converting decent, they're probably not going to be in that on that lead source for you for too long. What's the difference? I mean, is it process, or is it, other things, enthusiasm, confidence, like what are you finding that difference is from those that are just top of the top, crushing it, converting, versus those that are just mediocre?
Yeah. I mean, so I always kind of go back to mindset, typically people who want to create as much value for their clients, willing to work as hard for their clients, don't look at a lead source as a negative. Like you mentioned, a lot of times people might look at Zillow and say, oh, these leads are not very good. Well, if you think they're not going to be very good, they're not very good. Whereas if you think these are high quality leads, it's going to, you're going to convert a higher percentage. And I'll even look at just from my own personal standpoint, right? Like when I first got into real estate, I was desperate. I needed the money. I was motivated. So when I first started doing open houses, I was killing it. I was doing great with open houses. Well, as time went on, I started getting a little bit more burnt out. I didn't really care as much. When those leads would come in, I start converting a little bit less. And so it's just natural that based on your mindset, it's going to be determining how well you're converting. And so typically whenever we look at our top agents, typically they're willing to help anyone. They're willing to give as much value. They're not making excuses to not show up to meet someone. They're willing to do whatever it takes to convert it. Whereas some of our ones that convert at a lower ratio, typically they might have the mindset of like, oh, this is a land deal, it's not very good. Or, only land deals, are terrible. Or everyone's always got an agent, or whatever that might be. And typically people have that mindset, you're already kind of going into the conversation as a negative instead of saying, hey, this person, it's an opportunity, right? If this person has an agent, doesn't mean they might have not eventually use you. Doesn't mean that you can't help them, answering questions that they have. But if you immediately think, oh, this person has an agent, I'm not going to do anything for them because call your own agent. Well, you lost an opportunity, and so you're going to convert a lower ratio because of that. Now, even as far as like determining how many leads our agents get, typically, we have some of our top agents, are over 10% conversion ratio. And typically they're going to get the most leads. Well, our goal, or at minimum that an agent could be at on our team, is a 5% conversion ratio. If they're under a 5%, we really start slowing down their leads to where they're only getting maybe a couple a month. And it's not necessarily as a punishment. It's just giving them an opportunity to continue to follow up with the leads that they have. For one, we don't want them to bring our team numbers down. Because that might hurt some of our top converters because now they might not get as many leads, but we just it gives them an opportunity to kind of refresh, focus, maybe do some additional coaching, some additional training, objection handling, and kind of get themselves back on track. One of our agents, she wasn't, converting at a high ratio. So we kind of slowed it down. So she could refocus. And then next thing you know, like last 2 months, she got like 8 deals under contract in 2 months. So if there's a kind of power of being able to slow that down too, and allowing people the opportunity to kind of refocus. But for any of our agents, our goal is to get them at least 1 deal under contract within the first couple of months.
Yep. Love it, dude. So then what do you find when it comes to overall importance of, I know we've been talking a lot about Zillow here, but it's like, okay, you got, agents are doing open houses, maybe you got paid Facebook ads that you're giving them. Then you got, your Zillow Flex account here. I mean, each lead source is different, can require different follow-up, different strategies, different approaches, different things. As far as, instead of just blanket training everybody on, okay, well, here's lead follow-up, right? Like, I mean, you guys are spending a lot of time on, okay, we're going to identify what's the most effective strategy and process per each lead source and training on that. What significance, importance of that do you find?
As far as the type of leads that they want to generate, or?
Well, no, like making sure that you have, okay, like you've refined your process for Zillow and train your agents on that source, inspect what you expect on that source. And that's probably maybe a different protocol than maybe your open house leads,
Mhm.
right? So, but then you have separate training for this. Like you're not trying to say, okay, all lead sources, this is our blanket follow-up. Like you're breaking this down to maximize conversions per each lead source.
Yeah. Yeah. So typically whenever agent joins our team, one of the things that we always do is they go through their online training, right? And then at the end of their online training, we schedule a one-on-one business planning session that's catered to their own personal business plan. So even if we're giving them leads, we still recommend that they pick out 1 or 2 lead sources that fits who they are as a person. I find that's very important because a lot of times, someone may join a team and they may say, yeah, hey, in order to be successful, you have to do open houses, or you have to do this, right? Or you only get ZILLOW leads, or whatever that may be. And they don't, a lot of the teams that provide ZILLOW leads, they don't train people how to do open houses. They don't train people how to be self-sufficient in their own business, and so typically, we take them through all the different lead generation opportunities and training all that stuff. But when we meet them, we're going to sit down and say, okay, what lead generation opportunities fits your style and fits who you are and you'd be passionate about. And I always say, like, when I first got into real estate, I interviewed the brokerage. And one of the things this broker told me when I first sat down with him was that in order to be successful in real estate, you have to come to the office for 3 to 4 hours a day and just cold call expired listings. And at the time I thought to myself, that sounds absolutely horrible. I would hate to cold call expired listings for 3 to 4 hours a day. So I'm a huge introvert. That's not who I am. So that's why I chose open houses. Someone else may say, hey, Scott, I don't feel like setting up 50 signs in 120-degree weather during the summer, and they may say, hey, social media interests me. I want to create a YouTube channel, right? It all works. But it's bad for me to sit there and say, hey, you have to do open houses in order to be successful. If someone else doesn't enjoy doing open houses, they're probably not going to be successful. So typically, we take them through all the lead generation activities that and how to be successful at them. And then when we sit down, we say, okay, what activities benefits you and you feel passionate about, and then we'll come up with a personalized game plan for that lead generation activity. Whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's open houses. But one of the things that I've always said when it comes to real estate is, and most of the reason why real estate agents I think fail in this business is because they can't manage themselves. And the hardest part about being a real estate agent is being your own manager. And most people get into real estate because they want to be their own manager, but they can't do it, right? They can't create their own schedule. They can't. So one of the first things we do when we sit down is I say, let's come up with a schedule for you. If you want to do open houses, this is what you need to do, right? How many hours or how many weeks or how many open houses you want to do a week? Okay, you want to do this many open houses a week? Okay, great. You want to do social media? Okay, you need to post on social, spend an hour on social media every single day. Let's plan that out. And so we come up with a personalized game plan and come up with a schedule for themselves that allows them to be successful in real estate and be consistent with whatever activities it is that they want to do.
Yep. Awesome, dude. Okay, so then in those monthly coaching accountability, I don't know if they're how much accountability's in there, but it looks like you guys are going through notes and reviewing game plans. So looks like there's an element of that. Let's just say, you have some constructive constructive criticism on how they can improve their business. Well, sometimes that can, like people get defensive. People, how do you handle those meetings? Essentially to go in there and tell somebody, hey, dude, here's where you're freaking dropping the ball and here's where you need to improve, but do it in a way that is uplifting and motivating to them.
Yeah, I mean, so one, I'm a very even keel guy, so I don't get emotional like one way or another. So I don't get like super frustrated. I don't get angry. I'm pretty matter of fact. And my experience, that's where my experience in grocery management has been beneficial because I used to manage 100 some people, so I'm used to talking to people about opportunities where they need to prove themselves. So I think tonality is important. I think it's how you say things are important, like not necessarily what you say, because if I say something like you're not doing this, if I say it 3 different ways, every single way I say it is going to have like hit differently, and so I do think, just like kind of what you're doing with clients, I think psychology plays a lot to it. Every agent needs to be talked to differently. Some agents prefer the tough love, that's what's going to motivate them. Some other agents, if you give them that tough love, they might shut down and say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, and this isn't who I am. So you need to maybe coddle them a little bit more, or kind of give more uplifting and share some of the positive things that they're doing to make them feel better. Real estate's a tough business, and people don't realize how hard it is to deal with the public all the time. They think, oh, I can show houses, it's gonna be great. But what about that person that, calls and yells at you? What about the person says, "If you stop calling me," the people that, you think you have a great relationship with, and then they ghost you, it could be a very depressing job. And so if I'm sitting there like yelling at my agents for not doing the work they're supposed to be doing, it just adds that depression. And so then they kind of get burnt out a little bit quicker. So I think it's important to be honest, transparent, but kind of take the emotion out of it, and just basically say, hey, you're doing a good job, but these are areas that you need to improve. And that's part of the reason why I always lay out the numbers, because there's no emotion to it, right? Like I've already told you exactly what it is that will determine how many leads you get. If you're under 5% conversion, you're not getting many leads anymore, that's on you. We need to figure this out, right? And but there's no pushback because they already knew that was the expectation. They already knew going into it that this is what was going to happen. Whereas a lot of times I'll talk to agents who are on other teams, especially ZILLOW teams, where they get cut off of ZILLOW, but they have no idea why. Because no one really told them, no one really coached them. They didn't know what the expectations were. And so they end up leaving the team a little bit earlier. And so that might be one of the reasons why we haven't anyone really leave the team yet, is because all the expectations were pretty clear from the start. And I've never really had any pushback, even if, people are dropping their lead flow, I've never had anyone call me up and say, hey, how come I'm not getting leads anymore? Typically they understand, anytime we have those conversations, usually it's like, yeah, I kind of figured that was the reason why I'm not getting many leads. And so I don't really have a lot of, I don't really argue with anyone on our team. And and that's part of the reason why you recruit for culture too. I mean, most of our agents are pretty cool and down to earth and friendly. So, I mean, they're not, there's not a lot of conflict, on our team. So.
Yep. So let's kind of go down that path, transition to recruiting, dude. Because, so you were at 3 agents up until April, about a year ago. And now you are at 34. So, what has worked really well to go out there and recruit the right people?
Yeah, I mean, it all goes down to systems. Typically, we do a lot of our recruiting on Indeed. As far as posting, and then once someone comes through as Indeed lead, depending on what type of lead it is, whether they're licensed, if they're going through school, maybe they're getting ready to take their test, or more if they're not licensed at all. Then we have a kind of a different process for that. Usually sending out text messages, as far as following up with them, and then basically the goal is to set an appointment via Zoom where we kind of just talk about their goals and then our team as a whole. I'm pretty transparent when it comes to recruiting. I tell everyone exactly what you can expect, what you can get, what you get from our team. We're pretty competitive with splits. And so a lot of people like the leads given option. So, I mean, typically the majority of people join our team because we do give out leads. And on top of that, we're not oversaturated with agents. And with our lead flow continue to increase every single month, our agents are pretty much giving them a lot of leads, so they're pretty happy with being on our team too. But basically I take them through kind of everything that we do, kind of do a little bit of coaching with them on our Zoom call. And then based on, who they are, will determine my follow-up. If I feel like they're a great fit, after the meeting, obviously I want them to think about it. I might invite like one of our masterminds on Tuesday, just kind of experience us a little bit. But if I think they're going to be a great fit, typically after the meeting, I'll follow up with them a little bit harder. If I don't feel like they're going to be a good fit at all, typically I'm not as I don't follow up as much, to get them to join our team. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's mostly about the right culture fit. And there have been a few agents that have wanted to join our team. I said, listen, I just don't think it'll be a good fit for you. Whether it's that they think they know everything, so they feel like they don't have any opportunities to learn, which is typically a red flag to me. I mean, no matter how long you've been in real estate, you should always want to learn and grow and get better. And there have been a few agents I've talked to where they're just like, oh, I've been in real estate for 20 years. I know everything. I don't need to go through the online training. Okay, well, that's, probably we're not the best fit for you then. It's probably not going to work out. So, but I just typically people I connect with, like that I feel like are in my avatar that I would want, like, and I'm not saying I hang out with my agents, but if I'm talking to someone, I feel like, hey, this person seems like someone I would want to hang out with. They're pretty cool, down to earth, and they feel like they seem like they're motivated. Then that's typically good. I usually one of my first tests, whenever we recruit an agent, is we don't send a reminder text for our appointment. So if they don't show up, then that's obviously a red flag. If I send a text to an agent and they take a while to respond back to me, that's also a red flag. So those are type of things that, are kind of like little tests that we do before we even meet them. So there's a lot of agents where I don't follow up with, they didn't show up to the Zoom meeting, I never follow up with them again, because that's kind of like the first test. If you can't show up and you can't even send me a reminder text, then, I'm not going to continue to hound you to join our team.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because they're already articulating to you that you know, they're not serious. They're not, you know, timely, you know, right? They don't respect your time, you know, right? But then you look at that, especially with, you know, when you're investing so much money into leads and an account like Zillow Flex, you know, where at least here in Arizona, I know everybody that's all these states are different. Some don't have Zillow Flex. It's Premier and they're still buying per zip code. But, you know, here in Arizona, like you're always at risk of losing that account if you don't perform. You know, it's like you got to have people that can follow a process. Okay. Well, if they can't follow a process, yeah. So you know, overall, okay, you're not hiring out of desperation. You're not taking on everybody. You know, you've got kind of little micro tests that you're looking at and certain things, coachability and certain things. Now, do you, I mean, is like mindset or just their overall attitude, is that stuff, you know, that you're looking at too?
It is. And you probably know this too. I mean, it's hard when you talk to someone to determine if someone's going to be a rock star agent. You know, there are a lot of agents that joined our team that I had questions about at the beginning that I'm like, you know, okay, I'll give them a chance, but because they seem like they're very motivated to join our team. So they kept following up with me wanting to join. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll give them a chance, see what happens. And they become some of our top agents, you know, whereas vice versa. I talk to someone that I'm like, man, I really want this person on my team. I think they're going to kill it. And they join our team and then I never hear from them again, you know? So it's very hard to tell if someone's going to be a good agent. So typically that's why I say, if I feel like someone's gonna be a good agent, I'm going to follow up a little bit more. If someone is more forthcoming with me, like if they are the one that continually follows up with me, want to join our team, and I feel like they aren't going to be a personality drain, then typically I'll at least give them a chance to see if it works out. You know, and that's why whenever I bring an agent on board, I always tell them the most important attribute to me amongst every attribute that we want on a team is positivity. And I need people who are around me who are very positive. If you're a negative person, it's probably just not a good fit. You know, if there's always an excuse on why things can't be done, or if you think everything is just, you know, every day is a bad day, then I just, you know, not only don't want you on a team, I just don't want to be around you at all, you know? So those are definitely things that we kind of look for, you know, when it comes to, you know, so we give a lot of our agents our chances if they feel like they're, you know, if they're consistently coming up to me asking to join our team. But that's kind of where we give people a chance, but that's where it's important that we set the standards up front, because if they don't perform, then we're not going to give them the leads anymore. Right. So it's their performance is going to dictate how much leads they get going forward. So our risk isn't as much if they don't do it, unless that's why I say if they're negative, then it might be more of just like an everyday drain on my mind. But, you know, as long as they have a good attitude, if they don't perform, you know, you just don't get what you want then.
Yeah. 100%, dude. Yeah. I mean, because those, you know, just this past week, you know, I had, you know, when Lindsay came on, I had a chance to meet one of your new teammates, Lindsay. And I was just like, dude, like, what a great, amazing attitude. You know, like you could just tell from every word that was coming out of her mouth that she's just so growth mindset. So like just the excitement, and then like seeing everything, even though, you know, what most might get down or see as a negative, like she's just seeing the growth potential and that positivity, you know, and it's just like, okay, within like 5 minutes of meeting her, I'm like, all right, this chick's gonna crush it, dude.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. And that, you know, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I mean, you know, it happens, but I mean, that's where, you know, like when Lily's doing Dream, I mean, that was pretty exciting for us because I'm like, okay, I felt like she's going to kill it. I mean, you know, obviously time will tell, but, you know, she's obviously got the right mindset from the beginning, you know, to kind of do that. And, you know, one of the things, you know, reason why I think we don't have high turnover either is because we always give our agents opportunity to kind of grow within themselves. So, you know, someone wanted to start a team within our team, they can do that as well. So there's, you know, a lot of times, like if someone joins a team, they're forced to use like the, you know, team's marketing, brand the team stuff, you know, the team leader's got to be in every single contract. With us, none of that stuff has to take place. And we have signage, we have our team branding on stuff, but if someone wants to go ahead and buy their own for sale, you know, yard sign out of their own pocket and brand themselves, I mean, dude, I don't have a problem with it. You know, I mean, it's not about me, it's about them. That's kind of the way that we've always had our team operate. Is it's not about me at all. It's all about their growth and their potential, and helping them to achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, well, and I used to be that guy. You know, there was a time where I was that guy. My ego mattered, you know, to me. You know, but it stifled growth, man. You know, and yeah, removing that identity, that ego out of it, you know, definitely can accelerate a lot of growth. That's awesome, dude. So then, I know we're going long on time here, but a couple more questions for you. So, all right. So then, you know, you're running this team with your wife. So you business partners, and then you've got personal relationship, and and there's a lot of different, a lot of husband and wife teams are very common in our industry, whether it be team side or brokerage side. What are some things and structures that you guys do to kind of balance that? Because I got to imagine you both run in different departments, you're checking in, but at some point you need a break from real estate too.
Yeah, I would think we have a good marriage, but it's when you're business partners and you're married, it's not easy, right? And it's very, like, if I hire someone and they work for me, hey, I'm paying them, I can tell you what to do, and then if you're not doing what I need you to do, I can eventually get rid of you, right? Well, I can't fire my wife, for anything. So it is definitely a delicate line. That's part of the reason I think it's important that we kind of operate in different parts of the business, and then finding out what she does well versus what I do well. Because, one of the things, they always say opposites attract, right? So me and my wife are completely different. She's more extrovert than I am, she enjoys different things than I do. And so, I'm very systems oriented. She needs structure, but she doesn't like creating the systems, so there's that. And then, me and my wife, of course, we like to, just as far as outside of work, we watch a lot of TV shows together. We travel a lot together. We try to find times to do date nights. Because I'm even keel, like, we never really get into too many arguments. We're pretty, I think it's all about open communication. So, my wife will probably, make the comment that I communicate too much to her, but I think communication is an important part of it, and understanding that we're different people, because a lot of times what someone will say is, hey, this is the way I want to handle. Why didn't you handle it this way? Well, she's a different person. So, she's going to handle things differently than me. And so it's important to understand that we have different personalities, and understand that someone may be different, but it's important to communicate kind of like your feelings, what you're thinking, and have that open dialogue, but do it in a way that doesn't immediately create defense mechanism. Because if you come at someone with a very harsh tone, someone might be very defensive at that point, and that creates an argument that probably maybe you didn't mean it as a negative, but you said it in a negative way, which ends up causing a huge fight. So just being very conscious of that, of the way you say things, and that communication aspect. But we do a lot of things outside real estate together. I used to joke, I know there's a lot of people that work hard in this business, but because the way I've created systems, I used to joke when I was in retail management that I was like the highest rated, laziest manager around. Basically, I was always rated very high, but I didn't feel like I ever worked very hard. And that's because I created the systems to make my life more efficient. So that's the way I kind of feel in real estate. I don't feel like you need to work over 40 hours a week to make a ton of money in this business, but if you create the systems in place in order to make your life more efficient, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to work 30 hours and make, a couple $100,000 a year without a problem.
Yeah. 100%, dude. And you talked about, okay, understanding weaknesses, strengths, assigning roles, and whether it be, okay, a husband and wife, team, whether it be just business partners, or even, okay, you're bringing on, your ops manager, right? It's so important, dude, to identify those roles. And like, how do you do that? Some of them are probably going to be obvious, and I could say this just because I've known you guys for some time, but like, you guys have also kind of tested and tried out different things, like saying, okay, like, send them in for a while, like, okay, let's try seeing how the showing agent role goes. Do you like this? Do you enjoy this? Or, whatever. And kind of giving that flexibility to test out things too. What has worked good for you guys to identify what those best roles are for each of you?
Yeah. So obviously, like you kind of mentioned, it's always tweaking things. So it's always trying different things out. Typically what I've looked at, I've been pretty self-aware of what I do well and what I don't do well. And I'm always very honest with myself. And I think honesty is very important. So, like, if you realize that you, like, either A, are not going to do something, or B, you suck at something, be honest with yourself. Don't say, hey, I'm the best phone call person in the world and never make phone calls, right? You have to be honest, like, say, hey, listen, this is not who I am. And so for me, so first we started looking at, okay, what is it that either A, I hate doing, or B, I wasn't consistent enough to do it, right? Open houses, I was super consistent in, but making phone calls, I wasn't. I hated making phone calls. I'm a huge introvert. I hate doing that stuff. So the first thing we tried out was, okay, Cinnamon, she had experience in telemarketing before. So it's like, okay, I hate doing it. I'm not consistent enough with this to make a dent. So Cinnamon, we're going to have you make phone calls right now and see how that goes, and then on top of that, since we're married, it's easier for the handoff a little bit, when it comes to like, making appointments, stuff like that. Whereas, I'm great at selling myself. I can sit down. That's why I've always done well with buyer consultation, listing consultation. If I sit down with someone, I'm good at talking about myself and I'm good at selling myself. Cinnamon, not so much. She doesn't like talking, positively about herself. She, can be, lack confidence sometimes, and stuff like that. And so that's what started out. But then, it's like, okay, she's making phone calls. Well, she's busy. She's doing a lot of other things, is that something that she is consistent enough with it itself? Her calls were decent. She got me a lot of appointments, but is there room to grow there? And that's when we brought on our ISA, and then said, okay, well, let's try this out, and so it's just, like I said, it's just about tweaking things. And the first thing I look at is what either A, am I not good at, or B, even if I was good at, like, I think I'm pretty decent at making phone calls, but I knew I wasn't consistent enough with it. So I needed to find someone who would be consistent enough. Start off with Cinnamon, then eventually turned into hiring an ISA. So that's kind of how we've always handled it.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So I got two last questions for you, but before I jump into those, dude, for anybody that's watching or listening to this, if they either, because we're all in real estate. So whether they have a referral of somebody that's looking to buy or sell here in the Phoenix metropolitan area, because you cover the whole valley, or if there's somebody that maybe is here locally or relocating here and they want to talk to you about an opportunity of joining your team, like where's the best place to learn more about you, to get in touch with you, to follow you, all of that?
Yep. So obviously you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram, Scott Kumler, and send me a message on there. You can email me. My email address is scott@thekumlergroup.com. So THEKUM as in mother, LER group.com. Or you can call or text me. My phone number is 623-387-2688. You can call or text me anytime. I'm pretty available. Sometimes texting is the best, but you can also call me too, leave me a voicemail, and I usually get back to you fairly quickly. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. But I'm on like I said, I'm on all social media channels as well too.
Awesome.
I'm not TikTok, so
yeah. And anybody that's watching and listening, if you just scroll right below into the description, the show notes, I'll have all Scott's info, social links, all that, make it super easy on you guys. Okay, so last two questions here. All right, so what is, you started this off with, okay, man, got this flat tire, set this goal to move to Arizona, executed on it. So I'm curious, what are your next goals? Like, do you have a long-term vision or a 5-year goal, 10-year goal? Like where do you see yourself taking this thing?
Yeah, obviously the goal is to continue growing our team. That's kind of where we're at. But, the funny thing is, if you'd asked me a year ago, we'd be here today, I probably would have been like, okay, yeah, right. So, it's always fluid. Our goal is to continue to grow our team, maybe get some, employees in to take over some of the roles, whether it's, building up an ISA team or, admin, person or social media manager, stuff like that. And then the goal is to continue to recruit agents. Now, one of the things that I've always felt like I wanted to do is me and my wife love to travel a lot. So as far as our future goals, we'd love to be able to, go out of town for a month, and stay someplace, whether it's, another country or whatever that may be, still be able to operate our business. And so, kind of my long-term goal is just to make sure I have a ton of flexibility in my life, and then just help as many agents be successful in this business as possible. So
yeah, you're probably pretty close to being there, right? Like for your personal business, it's like one showing assistant, away, and then just running everything from Zoom, and you're probably 6 months from now we have you on the podcast, you'll probably be in another country.
Yeah, we do travel. We do travel a lot. Probably the only reason we don't go out of town for like a month at a time is because we have a dog that doesn't like people. Yeah. So we have to board him, and it's expensive. But yeah, we probably could, but it's just, you like to get to the point where you don't have to necessarily rely on your own production. And so, we're at the point now where we still technically have to produce because and most of our, production's all referral and sphere of influence based, but we want to get to the point where, our team is successful enough that, we no longer, like, any deal we do is more of just bonus money. It's nothing that we need to necessarily survive.
Yep. 100%. All right. So last question, dude, if Scott today, knowing everything that you know now from the 6-year journey, if you could go back to yourself, like let's just say, boom, that day that you graduated real estate school, sit on a park bench, and so your older version of yourself, younger version of yourself, sitting on that park bench, and give yourself a couple pieces of advice that you wish you would have known, what would those pieces of advice look like?
So, so the biggest thing I probably would have done was I probably would have started growing a team quicker than what I had done because that was never kind of in the cards. It was never, we always kind of wanted to grow a team, but I probably would have put more focus on that maybe a year or two earlier, because I think we'd be like light years ahead of where we are right now. But I don't know if I would really change anything else. Like I said, our team growth is kind of the biggest thing I wish we would have done earlier. I didn't realize it was going to be, kind of the way that it is, but I love it. I mean, I love, helping all of our agents be successful. That typically is what, gets me excited. I love when one of our agents especially a new agent gets a deal under contract within the first couple of months of being on our team. But I've always, kind of changed our system based on how my burnt out ratios and stuff like that, and so, typically when you get burnt out on one thing, but I don't know. I mean, I love doing, I love recruiting. I love talking to new agents. I love finding out people's past experiences. So when it comes to like any agent that we interview, I love hearing where they're coming from, what their motivations are. And so, who knows, maybe one day I'll kind of change that, our structure with that. But right now I've I don't have any regrets, ever since I've been in real estate. Like I said, the only thing I wish I'd done probably different is starting a team a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, Scott, I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here, dude. This has been a lot of fun, man. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, 100%. And those watching and listening, as always, we truly appreciate you guys being here. Keep crushing it, keep kicking ass, and we will see you next time. Peace.